Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Leigh Haugseth is an offer designer and business coach for health and wellness professionals. A former health coach herself, she is a certified behavior designer. Using behavioral science, she learned how to give her clients the highest chance for possible success, which resulted in better outcomes for them and more fun for her as a coach. Leigh has corporate marketing experience in the wellness field, but understands that marketing yourself as an entrepreneur is a little different. Her approach is to keep it as simple as possible. She loves simplifying offers and marketing, so you can focus on what's essential, have fun doing it, and easily bring in the income you want. Leigh is currently based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with her husband Ben and rescue dog Pepper. You can find her on her website at www.thebehaviorlabs.com or on Instagram at Leigh Haugseth. That's LeigHaugseth. Leigh, what an honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you so much, Casey. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for spelling my name out. I realize it's not easily findable if you don't know how to spell it.
Yeah, totally. And just for the record, I had to practice saying your name a bunch of times, so I really hope I didn't goof it up, but I really practiced a lot before we started.
No, you did a great job.
Well, thanks. Thank you so much. Well, we love our dogs. Rex and Tucker they're our family, and we absolutely love our dogs. But sometimes dogs can be a bit like a swimming pool where you think you want one, or maybe like a boat too. Like you think you really want one, but you actually really don't want one. You just want to be like really nice to somebody that already has those things so that you can just like use it while you want to use it and then like leave it. And I have to say, my favorite dog in the neighborhood that's not ours is also named Pepper. And we absolutely love Pepper. I mean, this dog will shoot out of this person's yard every time they hear our name just for like snuggles, and will roll all over us and run back. So I'm really curious to hear about your dog, Pepper.
That is so funny. What a coincidence. Well, my Pepper sounds, she's very friendly, but she sounds different than that Pepper in that she's a rescue. So she's a little timid with new people, but once you give her a treat or you let her sniff you, then she's your friend for life. But once she knows you, she will run up to you and be super friendly.
Yeah, that's funny.
But she's a brindle, so she's really blonde, but she's got these like black stripes on her. We think she's part greyhound, so she looks like a tiger.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting to see what things motivate dogs. Like Rex is motivated by play, but Tucker is absolutely motivated by food. And so once you figure that out, it makes it a lot easier.
Exactly. Pepper is motivated by prey, mainly bunnies.
That's awesome. I love that. Sounds like a wonderful dog. That's great. Yeah. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. I think that it's really important that we're talking to somebody like you who helps other health professionals. I've realized from doing this podcast that we have a lot more health professionals listening to our show than I would have imagined. But also I think for the average listener who maybe isn't into health and fitness as their career, I think there's a lot in here that we can unpack that will be very helpful as far as behavior change and establishing, healthy habits and boundaries and things like that. I just think that the better the health professionals get, the better results we can get for the people that work with us. And so I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation. I wanted to start out by hearing your journey into health and fitness and how you got interested in that in the beginning.
Yeah, great question. Well, in college, I gained weight, ate a lot of carbs, my hormones got out of whack, was just in bad shape, long story short. And I went and heard a nutritional speaker that I was required to go hear, but she was very inspiring and got me to start eating healthier. It was a slow process. It took a few years, but I eventually balanced out my hormones and lost the weight and just felt so much better overall. And so I just really started diving into health and wellness and nutrition and got really interested in it. And that's how I kind of got started. And then I did a master's degree in public health at UNC Chapel Hill. And that's how my journey got started. And I've been interested in it ever since because I think it's just has such a huge impact on our lives, especially now, with obesity rates and, we had a pandemic, are still kind of in it. And our health is affected by that as well. So I'm endlessly fascinated by it and just love trying to help people get healthier and really believe in what health coaches do.
I love that. Hormonal issues can be very, very tricky. And there's just so many different cascades of events that happen. If you are dealing with one hormone, it seems like 10 other ones will respond. And it's probably way, way, way more complicated than that and more complicated than we make it. I'm curious to know, besides the weight loss and just feeling good, what other things surprised you once you were able to get your hormones in balance?
Hmm. Great question. My cycles regulated. Um, I started feeling more energetic. Um, those are the main things. I didn't have acne anymore. Um, yeah, I just felt better. My skin was better, and my mental state was better. When I was in college and going through these things, I, went to my provider and they put me on the pill, and I tried several different kinds of that and realized that they all made me a little bit depressed, which I didn't realize till I got off of them. Because when I got off of them, I just felt so much better. They just didn't work with my body type. Some people might be fine with them. I wasn't one of those people. But
Yeah,
those are the
sure.
main changes I noticed.
Wow. And a lot of those things you notice are so ubiquitous. Like there's so many people dealing with those issues and so few people that would ever assume that by addressing things like diet and exercise that you would be able to make some of those things better. I think that's really impressive.
Well, thanks. I mean, and I make it sound like it was simple, but it was a journey of discovery. But I did intuitively know that they were connected, but I didn't really understand how connected until I kind of got on the other side of it.
Yeah, sure. What things did you have to unlearn along the way? Being a journey at that period of your life, but also since then, what things have you thought were really true and you needed to do, but over time you decided were not as relevant as you thought?
Ooh, great question. In terms of exercise, I realized I didn't need as much as I thought, but I did need it more regularly, just for me, because I was a gymnast growing up. I was competitive gymnastics for a long time, so I worked out a lot. Now and the past several years I work out, but I don't work out as hard. But it still keeps me feeling good, feeling energetic, feeling good mentally. I also realized that what I eat tends to have more of effect on my weight than exercise. They are inextricably linked. But if I want to, if I overindulge, around the holidays or something like that, I know that if I just kind of shape up what I'm eating a little bit, that will help take a couple of pounds off more so than like amping up my exercise per se.
Yeah, totally. That's definitely something I've learned along the way as well. And with a gymnast background, for you to say that you worked out a lot is probably a huge understatement. A lot of gymnasts that we work with are training hours and hours and hours, every day, let alone every week. So that can be really challenging to address later on in life. And it's really interesting that you have discovered those things. And definitely we have found a lot of those same things to be true. So it's cool that got you interested in health. I'm wondering how your interest in health and fitness began to shift towards helping other people in the health and fitness industry. What did that look like for you, and how did you recognize that something was missing that you thought you could be able to fill in with?
Great question. Well, I just kind of wanted to naturally share it, after my own transformation. I think a lot of health and wellness professionals go through their own journeys with their health and with feeling better, and have their own stories around it. And I definitely did. But I also realized, and have realized throughout the years that everybody is different. And so even if I share my story, only parts of it will resonate with others. I did notice as I was coaching people that they have to be ready to change. and And what I found was missing in terms of health coaching is that we're taught as health coaches and trained, if we go to a training program about it, how to help people change their habits and change their behavior. There wasn't really a lot of education around exactly how to do that. And it's getting better now. It's definitely out there more now, but I think a lot of coaches talk about, what to do to eat healthier and get fit, which is great, but they don't talk about how to maintain that, sustainably and do it for a long time and change your environment and not worry about motivation so much. So these principles that I learned about when I studied behavior design, I realized were kind of missing in health coaching curriculums and just in terms of how I coached people. I learned a lot about how to coach people better. So that really inspired me to change the way that I did my coaching and changed how I wanted to talk to other coaches and teach other coaches about it so that we can be more impactful and get results for people better, because I applied it to my own life and saw it working, and I'm big about, keeping it simple, and I can also be really lazy. So, but you can still be somewhat lazy and be healthy and exercise and establish a few good habits. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I can, I guess, kind of talk about Bethany and I on the one hand, and I will expand this out to a lot of the personal trainers that I have worked with in my career. And I would say that by and large, most personal trainers want to get the very, very best results for their clients because they really genuinely care. They really, really care about their people. It's not this thing where like, I want this person to pay me a bunch of money and I want them to be my client forever. Like most personal trainers I know would be happy to get fired by their clients because the client was getting really great results and learned everything that the trainer had to offer them. And so I can say like, again, in my experience and what I've noticed, the personal trainers really, really want to get results for people. And so I'm curious to deep dive into what are some of the limiting things as far as behavior change goes that you notice on the client end of things?
Yeah, I do love that about trainers and fitness professionals and coaches. I think you're absolutely right. They really, really do care, and sometimes to the point where it could be detrimental to the client or themselves. But the intention and behind it is always good. Let's look at fitness training in particular. I would love to have a personal trainer, and I'm actually looking into it because I think it is really great for accountability. It's great for just the fun factor. It's great for just education and knowing and learning how to be fitter and healthier and being able to feel those results, because I think those are big challenges for people. Having someone to show up for, having that personalized attention and knowledge can really help when you're not feeling that motivated. So I guess the biggest issue I see in terms of behavior change when it comes to health, well, there's so many. Environment, I think, is the biggest factor in terms of any kind of behavior change. Motivation is important. There are things you can do to increase your motivation. Like, I'm a morning person. I know I'm more motivated then, right? I know I'll be more motivated if there are certain things in place in my life, but my environment is the biggest factor. So when people change, I think they think, oh, I need to be more motivated. I need to figure out how to get more motivated. No, you don't. We're humans and our motivation goes up and down naturally throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout our lives, which is totally normal. So I like to encourage people to design for their lowest level of motivation so they can still do a small thing even when they're not motivated, to kind of move them closer to whatever their goal is. So, and we can get into specific examples on that, but that's just kind of a high level overview of generally what I tend to see. And in myself too. I know that if I'm in an environment where I'm taking a class, like an awesome, I had this dance class that I used to go to when I lived in Nashville called Dance Fix that I absolutely loved. It was a fun environment. It was the kind of class I wanted to do. It was near my house. It was easy to get to. I went all the time. It was my environment. But I've been to other classes where that's not the case. It's farther from my house and it's not really that fun. It's not kind of what I wanted to do. The teachers weren't that encouraging. So I didn't really thrive in those classes. And I think personal trainers are part of your environment. Like if you hire a personal trainer, that's part of changing your environment. And that can help you when you're not motivated.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm wondering the class that you really loved, let's say that class was at a location that wasn't very convenient. You had to drive extra to get to that class. I'm willing to bet that you would answer this question by saying like I would have driven a little bit further to get to that class because it was so fun and so engaging versus if the other option were even closer and more convenient to you, you probably still wouldn't have gone to that if it wasn't really, holding your attention and being really fun and engaging for you. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I love that class so much. I would have driven a ways. And it felt so good when I got out. Like it just, yeah, absolutely. You're right on.
Yeah, gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned maybe being able to name some specific examples of setting, kind of a motivation. Not that you don't need motivation, but you need a very, very low amount of motivation to be able to accomplish and do. I've got a few in my mind as well, but I'd be curious to hear what specific examples you're thinking of.
In terms of,
Like something that for the normal person, normal client, or somebody that just wants to get into better shape, what types of habits and things can they establish in their lives that require a very small amount of motivation? Because I think you're so right about that. The motivation does tend to run out at some point. The willpower absolutely runs out at some point. You can't throttle a really low caloric, diet forever or workout program that's really hard forever. That's going to, come at such a cost. I think the motivation is going to run out. So what are some examples of some really simple things that can build over time and actually lead to habits that last?
I like how you phrase that, build over time, because we can start with something really small, which kind of builds up our confidence and feeling, self-efficacy and feeling like we can do it, which can lead to tackling bigger things and bigger habits. Well, a great example, and I'm sure you and your listeners have heard this, is put your running clothes out or your exercise clothes out the night before if you're doing a morning workout, or put your tennis shoes by the door so they're really easy to just put on. I knew one guy who would sleep in his workout clothes, so he didn't have to put them on. When he got out of the bed, he already had them on. So those are some examples of things you can do. Hiring a personal trainer is great. I mean, that just takes one step and then you're locked in. When you're not motivated, it doesn't matter. They're going to be expecting you to show up. Designing your kitchen to where the healthy foods are easily accessible, designing your fridge to where it's easier to eat those healthy foods. And I know a lot of health coaches do work around this, which it seems so simple, but it's really impactful. If I have Girl Scout cookie tag-alongs in the freezer, I will eat them. If I have watermelon instead, I will tend to go for that because I love it just as much. But it's healthier.
Yeah. No, that's a really great example. I love that. I love starting in the kitchen and making the things that are going to trip you up or not get you to your goals, making those things less convenient while making the other things that are better choices more convenient.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of habits, BJ Fogg talks about this in his book, Tiny Habits. But if you're trying to add a habit to your life, well, first of all, I would recommend really only having a few habits. Like I only have a few daily habits that I really stick with that I feel like really make an impact for me. So if I'm going to add one, it's going to be because I have a goal I really want to accomplish, or I think it's really going to kind of help my life. But even creating, a few habits or adding a habit can be tricky. So Dr. Fogg talks about anchor habits. So if you're already, say, getting up and making your coffee in the morning, if you're trying to take your vitamins, like my husband cannot remember to take his vitamins, but if he would put his vitamins right by his coffee maker, that is just kind of a visual trigger to remind him to take the vitamins. So he would take the vitamins right before he drinks his coffee every morning. Little things like that. So visual cues, triggers or prompts, as we call them, if it's a new habit, to remember to do it, and do it either before or after an anchor habit. So say, for example, you're trying to floss your teeth more. You can start small by just flossing 1, 2, 3 teeth a night, and that you always do it after you brush your teeth. Dr. Fogg sometimes gives examples that he does at home, like right before he gets in the shower, he'll do like 5 push-ups or something like that. So if you start a new habit and time it around a habit that you already got in place, that's just like a no-brainer, that can help you remember to do it more.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I really want to emphasize this because I think it's so important. I love your approach. I love how simple you keep things and how you make that a priority. And you also prioritize a few habits, not necessarily prioritizing tons and tons of habits, because that's where we really tend to get lost. If we're trying to do, 17 different things all at once, we're not going to do anything. Where if we really just focus on the one or two things that are within our control that we can do and just leave it at that, if you let those results compound over time, I think you get way better results rather than trying to tackle everything all at once.
Absolutely. Well said. And you have to be ruthless about it. Like you have to really think what is really important to me. It can be kind of cathartic to really just focus on a few because as you said, yeah, you'll get results from those. And that's more important than having a bunch that you're trying to go after and it's just overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that was really helpful for, the listener who isn't necessarily a health professional and wants to establish better, habits as far as their health and fitness. I think that's helpful for all of us. I do want to talk to you about your wheelhouse, which is helping other fitness professionals become better at their jobs. And I'm going to start asking you about that by asking you, if you're considering hiring a personal trainer currently, you're thinking about all the different attributes that you would want in a trainer, being somebody who I would consider an absolute expert in this field and has worked with tons of people in all different kinds of disciplines in the health and wellness area. What things specifically are you looking for and what kind of person would you hire versus somebody that maybe you wouldn't consider as an option to hire for a trainer?
Great question. And well, I can give what I think I would want, but it would be hard to. I've never hired one. So I probably would have to try out a couple to see what really works. But I would think somebody that is fun that I get along with. So it's something I look forward to. And they don't have to be like fun, like rah rah fun, but just someone I enjoy talking to and that I feel supported by, that I don't feel self conscious around. Someone that is really knowledgeable in terms of my age, my body, and kind of what my goals are, and just like their level of expertise. Someone that has some testimonials, maybe from people I know or people that have worked with them. So I would feel safe and comfortable, the first couple of sessions. Yeah, those are the main things.
Yeah, no, that's really good and thoughtful. And I think the important part for all of us is not necessarily to have all the same priorities that you have, but to be really mindful of asking that question because those answers could vary person to person. Somebody might want somebody that's a lot more technical or, oftentimes in personal training, we get hired because, we're inexpensive therapists, really. So I do think it's important for most people to really consider what is it that you want and just understand, like you need to go out and experience different people to really understand what it is that you want. And you can hire a trainer for a single session or a limited amount of session to really get a feel for what they offer. And it's not a big deal if you decide to leave and try to find somebody different that will more fit your needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. The trainers want to see you successful. So if it's not a fit, it's not a fit. Same with like if you hire a counselor, a mental health counselor, sometimes you have to try a few before you get one that feels right.
Yeah, totally. So what are the gaps that you tend to see with trainers or fitness professionals when they are, getting a business going, they're trying to work with new people? What are some common mistakes that you tend to see with those people?
Well, I mean, a lot of trainers have not marketed before, so that's an issue. And some of them have training in it, but some of them haven't done it or practiced it or tried it out. So that's a big one. And most people don't know about it unless you have your own business, right? Or if you work for a company even if you work for a company that does marketing, it's totally different than if you're doing it on your own. So really just getting the word out about what they do in a way that feels authentic is overused, but feels like them and doesn't feel like they're being really salesy.
Mm. And how are you as a coach able to help other coaches get that down to be a more simple kind of plan or program that they can then implement?
Yeah, so my expertise lies in creating programs and products that really change behavior. But I like to also work with people on simple marketing plans that doesn't feel overwhelming. So I haven't. One of my offers is kind of marrying the two because I think they're linked. Like I don't I don't think some people have a marketing problem. I think sometimes they have a problem with what they're offering and their feelings of confidence around that. So, but in terms of just strictly marketing, I think a lot of wellness professionals get overwhelmed with the options for it. And it's really just best to keep it simple and stay consistent in one area. I mean, I recommend if you haven't done a lot of it to just stick with one, maybe two platforms. And it doesn't even have to be a platform like social media per se. It can also just be working your network in your community. But I recommend just like 1 to 2 ways where you show up consistently, or 1 to 2 places you show up consistently. That can be at your, in your neighborhood, or at your local gym, or at, your community meetings for fitness professionals, or it can be on Instagram, or it can be in a networking group on Facebook. It can be multiple places, wherever you feel most comfortable and confident. And that's the place that I would recommend.
Yeah, that's something that definitely surprised us as we were getting our business going, is we wanted to be a little bit all over the place, and we work with people virtually all over the world. And, we have programming options that we can offer people. But where we found the most success and where we have grown the most is just locally in our own neighborhood. And learning that about our business and about ourselves has really helped drive where we put our attention as far as the marketing goes. I mean, we're doing a lot less things like Facebook ads and, trying to get marketing out to a wide range of people that are all over, versus just concentrating on simple offers around our neighborhood that can help the people that are local that we absolutely love.
I love that. And it's funny because my husband is the same way. So my husband is a real estate agent, a new one, and he is very much extrovert where I'm more introverted. And I keep telling him to get on social media because it's a great way to get leads, but it's not his jam. But what he does is he has worked our entire neighborhood, and he has listings over this entire neighborhood because he goes out for walks every day and chit chats with the neighbors. Now, me, I'm not going to do that. I just want to get out, get my walk done, and get back inside. So it depends on your personality too. But absolutely, you can do it. You can do it a lot of different ways.
Yeah, sure. No, that's great. I love opening up those different options. What is the purpose of creating a signature offer? And again, I think this is so relevant for all the listeners, whether you're a health professional or not, but really sitting down and thinking like, what is my purpose in life and where can I create the most value for people? How does a signature offer that has the ability to maybe truly transform somebody's life, why is that so important? And how can we explore that and grow that?
I love that question. So for me, I love a signature offer because it just keeps things simple. I like just having one main thing that I put everything into, and I feel like gets my clients results the most. And just sticking with that. Now, a lot of coaches have other offers, which I think is great. You can do it a lot of different ways. But to me, a quote signature offer, and I know that word is used a lot, is something that is your signature. So is something that utilizes your strengths, your talents in a way that really helps other people. Yeah, in terms of how to grow it, which was your second question, really, to me, it's really getting the word out about how you help people is the way you grow it. Because I think a lot of people will try and offer, not get a lot of clients, and then move on to something else. When really it's just a matter of being able to talk about it in a way that gets people excited about it, and talk about it and get the word out to where people even know about it. That's sometimes the issue. It's not that people don't want it. It's just that they're not hearing about it.
Yeah, very interesting. I do want to talk about that, but before we move on, I want to ask specifically, like I see a lot of value in knowing about a lot of different things and having a good base of like general knowledge, especially when it comes to health and fitness. Like a health professional should know, healthy foundational things about cardiovascular exercise. They should know about lifting weights, how to do that safely. They should know some general parameters around nutrition. And for most of my career, I certainly was more of a generalist where I could answer, a shallow amount of questions in a lot of different things. But I found as my career went on, it was easier for me to get really specific and really focus in on one specific thing, and whether I was going to attract everybody to that one thing or not. For me, it was low carbohydrate diets. And I remember specifically feeling like I was getting pigeonholed into the guy who only did low carbohydrate diets. And I really resisted it for a long time until, one of my other mentors talked to me and said, look, you got to just like embrace this and use this and as a way to maybe be an expert in this one thing, and you'll attract the right people. And that really changed the trajectory of my career. And again, I'm not saying that my way is the right way and the only way. It's almost like, we use this example a lot. It's the example of like a car salesman. Like I chose to know a lot about Fords. You wouldn't come to me if you wanted a Chevy. You would go to the Chevy store. But I'm curious to know what your opinion is on having a vast amount of knowledge about a lot of different things versus knowing a lot about one specific thing.
Great question. So before I answer that, quick question for you. Are you still enjoying focusing on that niche?
Love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I have not stopped listening to podcasts and books on tape at double the speed every spare second I get for years now to try to, learn a little bit more about some of these topics. So yes, for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of, is it niching down? I've never been sure how to pronounce that word.
I'm not either. I always wonder.
I'm going to Google that after this. I'm a big fan of doing that because I think it helps focus yourself as a coach. Because I think we can, as coaches, get overwhelmed with the amount of knowledge we have and not really sure how to share that or talk about it or help people with it. It's kind of all over the place. But when you focus on one thing, it's amazing kind of what comes to your head in terms of what to share, like for your marketing, or you just become laser focused on it and it just makes everything easier to me. That being said, there are some wellness coaches that are more generalized, and I've seen them be successful too. For example, there's a group of 2 gals, and I can't remember their names, but they focus on green smoothies. That's it. And they just have a really simple business about how to create all these different kinds of green smoothies, and they do videos about it, and they post about it regularly, and they've done really well. But I guess you'd say that they were niching down on green smoothies. Yeah, I guess you could say that. But it was something that kind of applies to everyone. But with health and wellness, you can niche down to certain specific problems that people are suffering with, whether that's IBS or, in terms of fitness, if they're really struggling with putting on weight or wanting to build their muscle. I think niching down is a huge asset. I think it's a good thing to do. That being said, I don't think it's for everyone. Some people would get bored with that. I don't find that. I find I just go deeper and deeper, and I never really get bored with it because there's always something to learn.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I think that's valid either way. I mean, I think about like different certifications I've gotten over the years. And I remember times in my career where it was like, I'm just after the next certification, whatever this certification tells me is going to be, God's truth from heaven. And I'm only going to talk about that one thing until I get my next one. Where, other times in my career, it's like, no, I need to really focus in on the things that I've already done and the certifications I already have and just get really good at those things. So I do see value in each one of those approaches for sure.
Yeah, and people can find you easier. When you are known for a certain thing, it's much easier to be able to find places where people that might be interested in that hang out. And it's just easier for them to find you. And then you get more clients, you're more successful, and that's fun.
Yeah, totally. I love that you make fun a huge priority because I think that is a priority for most of us. It is something that's very, serious, and we're working with people on their health, and that's a really important and serious thing. But it also, we need to keep in mind to keep it light and keep it fun for people. And that's a huge reason why people come back to us and how we retain people. Really curious to know, with the people that you've worked with, what are some common roadblocks besides, I guess, what we've already talked about, which is making things like way overcomplicated? Why is it so difficult for a lot of people in the health and wellness space to be able to do marketing and to put it out there in a way that people can appreciate and will draw clients to them?
It's not something to have experience with. I mean, I didn't have experience with it when I first started doing it. I think health coaches also tend to really just want to focus on the work, on the coaching, on the getting results for their clients. They just care so much. They want to put all their energy into that. But the truth is, if you have a business and if you're running a business, you have to have your coach energy and you have to have your running a business energy. You can't just have one or the other, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So figuring out how to get enough knowledge without being overwhelmed on how to talk about what you do and get the word out. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. You don't have to get an MBA, to do it. but there is some, education involved in terms of how to do it, but it doesn't have to be complicated. And it's really more, I think, of a mental mindset, putting aside time to work on your business and maybe getting a coach to help you with it. Or, if that's not a strength for you and you're really focusing on coaching, then just kind of skilling up in that a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Do you have any specific examples of that with like people that you've worked on, maybe some very specific advice that applied to somebody? And I've worked with you too for this exact reason. And I can name a few specific things that you gave me that I thought were extremely helpful. But just thinking, about some of the specific people that you've worked with, what could that maybe look like and how simple can you make that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me think of a good example. Well, I did work with someone once that was really focused on their website, like getting the website perfect, getting it up and getting it just the graphics looking really good, getting it to where they really liked it, but it wasn't really moving their business forward. So we just kind of talked about how a great looking website is important and is good. But when you're starting out and this person wasn't that far along in their business, it's not necessarily something you want to be putting all your energy into. So we looked at, what are the main messages that you want to have when you're talking to people and kind of get a handle on what those are. Because once you have your messages and kind of what you want to talk about and have your elevator pitch, it's much easier to just kind of have it roll off your tongue when you're in conversation with someone or be able to share something on social media. So really, she kind of paused making her website look more perfect and really focused on getting out in her community because she was an extrovert too. And she started doing a couple of talks at like Whole Foods and different events and started getting clients that way. And she didn't even need a website.
Wow. No, I think that perspective from a coach from the outside to be able to help a fitness professional understand how they can change things is so helpful because we get so myopic and we think there's only like one way to be able to run a business because we learned it from somebody who ran their business that way. And that was a very difficult thing for us when we were just first starting out and learning about how to be an entrepreneur. And you're trying to follow other people without realizing you can be whoever you want to be in a way that nobody else is doing if you like. If there's no restriction or limit to how you can do that. And so I think it's so critical to understand where your strengths are and how to play up to those and really make that, the focus versus focusing on things that are really never going to help you with business.
Yeah, and it takes a little trial and error sometimes, especially if you're new. I mean, I'm still trying things, seeing what feels good, seeing what doesn't work. It's great if you can have a kind of an idea of your strengths and an idea of where you might want to market. But if you haven't really done much of it, you don't really know what those are. So I think it's okay to give it a little playroom, so to speak, to kind of try out some things, see how it feels for us as coaches. Like, do I like talking about it this way? Do I like Instagram? Yeah. Do I want to talk to people in person? And figuring out kind of what we want to do and also matching that up with what seems to be working in terms of getting clients. And that does take a little practice and trial and error to figure out.
Sure. And that's probably a really great segue into my next question, which is basically like, how can a coach become more confident in what they have to offer over time? Is it just that patience and time and trying a lot of different things that will provide that for them?
Great question. There's a couple things I've seen. One is making sure you're working with people, whether it's paid or for free, because then you're getting inside knowledge into what people that you'd be working with are struggling with, and you can actually be helping, which builds your confidence. So I'm not a big proponent of doing coaching for free unless you're really just starting out. But if you don't have any clients yet, you can do some kind of work, whether it's auditing somebody's website or doing a 10-minute quick personal training freebie kind of thing to keep your confidence up and make sure that you still, feel good about working with people, that you know what you're doing. That is a huge one. Another is always continuing to learn about different new things in your field. To me, that keeps me excited and keeps me confident that this is where I want to keep my focus. And, but being able to get results for people, I think is really the biggest one.
Yeah, I am so glad you went there with that question. I I have spent my career watching other personal trainers, and they tend to get to a certain level of education, or they get to a certain level of clients, and to their credit, they can kind of back off a little bit and they don't need to push so hard, which is really great. But I also saw those people really decline in their business over time because they weren't sharpening the saw. They weren't getting better at stuff. And I spent a lot of my career really complaining about all the free things that we had to offer. As we're training people, we are 100% commission. If somebody doesn't want to train with us, we literally make no money. There's no hourly pay. You're either working with people and getting them good results, or you're not and you're getting fired. And over time, you just started to recognize, like, wait, if I want to be really good at this, I need to give away a certain amount of my time all the time and use that as a way to practice and to sharpen the saw and to get better at a certain skill set, whatever that looked like, because otherwise you're just wasting time. And it's almost like if you're not innovating and creating, you're kind of dying. You're going downhill. It's not like you're staying stagnant.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the nature of humans to want to do that, just like even in our free time too, right? To just kind of be like learning new things and checking things out and having fun. And I think sometimes we can get bored with what we have to offer because one, we're so familiar with it, we forget it can really help people and be totally new information for people. So that's why working with people can really help you remember that, oh, I know this, like the back of my hand, but other people don't. And it's fun to see them, have an aha moment or see it change their lives. But also, like I said, keep learning and keeping it fresh for yourself so that you're always, excited to talk about it is important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm wondering if you've come across this as well, working with health professionals who really don't understand their true value. They don't know how to create a pricing structure that makes sense, one that's fair for them, but also for the client, and one that provides a lot of value. Can you talk a little bit about how a trainer or health professional can understand how to create value and how to ask for the right price?
Right. Well, in terms of value, I think you have to already know that the work that you do has value. And I think working with clients, whether for free or for a fee, whether it's beta clients, you're testing out a new offer and you're, enrolling people at a discount to kind of get their feedback, but they get to work with you. That for sure. In terms of how to price it, there's lots of different schools of thought on this, and I'll give you mine, but it's not necessarily the end all be all of pricing. I have a coach that I work with, and she kind of introduced this to me, which I really like. And it's kind of like you have your vomit price, she calls it, which is where it's like a price like really high, where you just like feel like you want to just throw up. You feel like it's so high, and then you have your lowest that you would be willing to take. Right. For the work that you're going to put in there. What is the lowest that you would be willing to take to work with someone? And then kind of go in the middle between that. I think for me, I kind of intuitively know how much I want to charge. But I think getting feedback from other people too, that maybe have worked with you or know you can be helpful too. I'm not an expert in that area, Casey. That's just my answer for myself.
Well, I figured either way you would come up with something very thoughtful, and I think that's helpful. It's tough when you're in a market and you feel like maybe you are, competing with other people. But I think it's really important to have more of a creation mindset where, yeah, some people might be training people that I'm not going to connect to, but there's plenty of business that I can create on my own without having to compete with somebody else and compete with their pricing structure. It is just so critical, and I notice this all the time. Really discovering what your value is and asking a fair price that does ride that line. It's it might be a little expensive for you as the health coach, but it's not expensive for the person that you're helping because you are giving them that value that really means a lot to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And I do think a lot of coaches undervalue themselves. So I would say maybe add a little bit to whatever you're thinking and be confident in it. Now, if you've worked with people and you know your stuff and you've got some testimonials and you're getting the word out, I mean, then I think you should feel confident in charging whatever you're going to charge. If you're brand new and nobody's worked with you and can give you a testimonial, and then you might start a little bit lower. But there is something to be said for when someone charges not very much at all. I like me personally, I kind of question it. And sometimes, I mean, this is just how the human brain works. When you see a higher price, you sometimes think that you're getting better value and you're getting better quality. But if you charge that higher price, you better have the goods to back it up.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And you're going to find out real quick whether that's going to be the case, where people are going to stick with you or not. And if people are not sticking with you, you probably need to reevaluate how much value you're actually offering somebody. We had somebody just recently who reached out through the website, and we were more than happy to help this person. And they said they wanted somebody to come over to their house 5 days a week in the morning and coach them through workouts. And we told her what our price was, which is not inexpensive. It was a significant, investment, and it didn't fit what this person was looking for. This person was just looking for somebody to come over and basically yell at them to do different exercises. And it's like, that's great. You should probably go on to a site like Thumbtack or something where you can find people, name your price, describe what you're looking for, and have people kind of bid on that type of service. But we just knew for us, like, that's not what we do. We're going to, do movement screenings. We're going to really evaluate, any medical markers, blood markers that you have. We're going to deep dive into nutrition. We're going to hold you accountable to certain things. It's much more that people are getting in our service versus just coming over and, yelling at people, which is not really what we do. And it was important to make that distinction because I know that in the past, I probably would have pandered to something like that, taken way less money for something that wasn't helping the person, that wasn't making me happy. And it's just everybody loses in that scenario.
I love that you guys created that boundary for yourselves and also used it as an opportunity to talk about what it is that you do offer in case they might want that in the future and there's somebody else that does, and just kind of standing for who you are and what you do. I mean, that does something to yourself too, as a coach, and for your confidence and where you're going.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely didn't want to burn any bridges when we found out like we weren't a good fit for this person, to be able to say, very politely, like, hey, this isn't exactly a good match for us, but this is what we offer. We're always here to help. Let me make some suggestions of places that you can look so you can find what you're looking for. So you're right. Like, hopefully, 6 months, a year, 10 years down the road, we have it happen all the time where somebody has worked with us in the past. We were, courteous to them. We didn't screw them over, and they moved back to the area or something, and they decided to work with us again because we provided, a fair value, whether somebody paid us or not, and gave them as much value as we possibly could. And I do believe in that kind of karma, and that always kind of comes back to you.
Me too.
Totally. Well, I do want to round this out by talking again about behavior design. I think this is such an interesting concept. Are there any other things that you consider to be behavior design, something that you do that you feel like is missing for a lot of fitness professionals that they could definitely benefit from learning more about?
Well, I mean, I speak more conceptually, so let me try to kind of get into the examples around this. To me, the biggest thing that fitness professionals do to help people change their behavior is to create that environment for that to happen. And they also help with motivation, just naturally. The only other thing I can think of is simplicity. So simplicity changes behavior. And if people are having trouble, finding a way to make it easier for them. So fitness professionals, and you could probably think of examples better than I could, but they already kind of do this by personal training. They already kind of incorporate all of these things. But in terms of an example, are you asking, like, if you ask someone to sort of do some exercises at home and they're having trouble doing that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great example.
Okay, so yeah, if they're not in that environment with you and you're not there motivating them, how can they continue to do the exercises for their knee or whatever else? I think one key is to help them figure out how to change their environment at home so it's more supportive, whether that's creating a space for some workout equipment or having them form a friendship or have a buddy to walk with, or have a buddy to work out with, that they don't have to pay, but they can also hold them accountable, and it makes it more fun. That can be important. Helping them learn how to create a new habit. And the new habit would be doing those exercises, right? So if you understand about habits and you've studied up a little bit on how to do that, you can talk to them and figure out what might be the best way for them to create that new habit. Kind of, them a little bit because you've worked with them, and like what motivates them, what kind of environment do they need to really be able to do this, and how can they make it really easy on themselves? So maybe it's asking them to do a little bit less at home to start, so they can just do like the smallest thing, and then moving up from there.
Yeah, I love that. And I think this puts all the, the responsibility on the fitness professional to be doing these things themselves. I see a lot of people not really practicing what they preach in the industry. And it's like, if you don't know how to create good habits for yourself, even in challenging situations where you need resilience, you need to be able to grow and learn and have that growth mindset, that yet mentality of, I'm going to keep working on this. I'm going to keep growing and learning over time. I think it's going to be very difficult for the fitness professional that doesn't value those things in their life to be able to translate that into the life of their clients. And keeping in mind, you're seeing these people, best case scenario, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours a week. And there's, 160 something 100 hours left in the week where they're going to go off and do their own thing. And you have that one touch to maybe, transform somebody's life and keep that person with you to have the time to allow that to happen. And without the fitness professional, being really mindful of their own lives and the habits that they're creating, I think that's going to be very difficult. So I think that's such an important point.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of listening to them and talking to them a little bit, if you have the time in your session, even if you just take 5 minutes to be like, so how are you feeling about doing these at home? Are you dreading it? Is there a way that we can make it more fun? Is there a way that would help you be able to do it easier at home? And kind of look at those aspects and at least get them thinking about it and not feeling the pressure to do it perfectly or in the exact right environment, and like figuring out a way that they can do something at home that keeps them, moving forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. And listening, I'm so glad you mentioned listening. That is really critical. Our clients become our friends and family. We spend more time with them than we spend with pretty much anybody. And, it is important for the fitness professional not only to count to 12 and know what exercises to do next and how to change that person's behavior, but to really actually take the time to care. What is that person into? What do they like to do in their free time? What challenges are they facing in their personal life? And to be able to remember that and really listen and ask leading questions that give you that information. I think that really helps to develop rapport and helps you retain your people for far longer.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, this has been such a fun and interesting discussion. I think it's going to help a lot of people. I have heard you talk in the past a little bit about morning routines. Is that something you still believe in? And if you do, what is your typical morning routine?
I love this question. I'm a huge believer in morning routines. I think they work for most everyone. And I say most everyone because my mom keeps saying she's a night owl and it does not work for her. She gets up at 10 a.m. every morning. So I have to respect her feelings on that and understand that there's some people that just they're best later in the day or in the evening. But on the whole, I think almost anyone can create a morning routine and get up somewhat early in the morning. I mean, research shows that you're most alert, if you've had a good night's sleep. Like when you wake up in the morning, those first few hours, you have a larger amount of willpower. You don't have decision fatigue. For me and for a lot of other people, it's our most creative time, before we start getting on the phones and all the things and the work stuff comes in. So I think a morning routine, a really simple one, and mine is super simple, can really set you up for a good day. So my morning routine, well, it varies a little bit depending on the season. In the summer, I'll wake up early and have a glass of lemon water and go immediately outside and walk or exercise because it gets so hot later in the day. But right now, I'm getting up, having my lemon water, kind of green juice. I always have a little fruit in the morning. I don't know why I started that, but I just love it. I'll have a little breakfast and then I will go work out. I don't meditate. I do not write affirmations. I do not. There's lots of different things you can do, and that works for a lot of people. I just read a book actually called The 5 a.m. Club. I don't know if anybody has read that, but it basically advocates getting up really early and for 20 minutes doing some sort of physical activity, for 20 minutes doing something like meditation or introspection, and for the next 20 minutes, like doing something to learn and grow and something new. And I love that. I don't know that I can stick with that personally. But I think having some sort of morning routine, no matter how simple it is, that makes you feel good, is really important.
Yeah, and somebody could take that template and make it work for them. They could build on that. They could take away from that. They could reduce the time, but still having that routine. I see so much value in having certain things that are important to you be actual like rituals, very ritualistic. I am that way about podcasts. I'm that way about my work clothes when I put them on in the morning. Like I do it in a certain way. I'm ritualistic about my hockey stuff and my cycling stuff because those are things that are important to me, and I really love them. I'm not ritualistic about brushing my teeth or other things that are more mundane and day to day. I just do them because I do them. But to pick the things that you want to be really mindful for and be present for those things in a ritualistic way, I think is really important.
I love that. I need to do more of that. So you mean like when you're doing those things, it's more of a ritual rather than just like a habit that you quickly go through.
Yeah. My hockey stuff is laid out in a particular way. My podcasting stuff is laid out in a particular way. I'm sitting down 10 minutes before the episode, quick meditation. I read the intro to minimize, the times I'm going to goof it up, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. But I'm really intentional about that because to me, that's something that's really important in my life where, again, like brushing my teeth, I do because I got to do it, but there's no ritual there. It doesn't provide richness in my life. It just provides, better breath and hopefully clean teeth.
Yeah. I love that. I once took a class on how to make tea, like matcha tea, because in other countries, it is more of a ritual than it's here. Like here, I'll just like throw on the kettle and throw in a tea bag. But in that class, I learned that it can be really, a grounding, calming, enjoyable experience to slow down and make the tea, each act deliberate. Like we actually sat on a rug, we, brought the kettle over, and it was very beautiful actually. So I love the idea of rituals. I think that ties in with habits and actually sounds better than habits. Yeah. I mean, they're not exactly the same, but they're intertwined.
Yeah, definitely those things that you want to be really special. And it's maybe not everything, or maybe it's not even every time, but to remember that, like, I'm going to have coffee in the morning and 99.9% of the time that I drink coffee, I'm just throwing it down the gullet and trying to wake up. But really, it's a different experience if you're like, I'm going to taste this, I'm going to sit down and really enjoy it. And there's times in life for both of those things, I think. So I think it's important to consider.
That's true. There are times for both. You're absolutely right.
Well, this has been such a fun conversation. I think I know the answer to the question I'm about to ask you, but if you were to distill down one simple thing, that's probably a big hint for you right there, that the listener can take away from this conversation, what would that one tip be?
When you're trying to do a new behavior, whether it's work-related or health-related or whatever, don't try to get more motivated. Focus on making whatever behavior you're trying to change easier, simpler, and more fun. You're more likely to do it.
I absolutely love that. I knew your one simple tip would be something very simple. So that's perfect. And that's a perfect way to end this conversation. Leigh Haugseth, tell the listeners where they can go to find you and connect with you and your work. And also, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about the programs that you offer and how you work with people.
Sure. I'll try to keep that as simple as possible too. So if you'd like to sign up for my newsletter, you can go to my website, thebehaviorlabs.com/newsletter. Real simple. And I also have a simple marketing guide available, and that is at thebehaviorlabs.com/simple marketing guide. And what I do, the main offer that I have is I work with health coaches to design their signature offer that really transforms their client's behavior, and a simple marketing plan to go with it that doesn't overwhelm them. I know a lot of coaches focus mainly on the marketing or just on creating the offer, but I think that they're inextricably linked, and you have to, or it's helpful to look at both things. It just makes it stronger.
Yeah, that's great. I absolutely love that. And I love the personal time that I've been able to spend with you and how you've helped to make our business a little bit more streamlined and simplified. And so I would encourage the listener, especially if they're in the health and fitness field, to take you up on that offer. I found a lot of value in that and was very happy to pay the price that you offered, which I thought was totally fair. So Leigh Haugseth, thank you so very much for joining us for this conversation. Thank you for everything that you've done to make this simple and approachable, both on the client end and the business professional end. And we so appreciate you and your work. And thank you for coming on our show today.
Well, thank you, Casey. I really loved being here. It was an enjoyable conversation, and you were a great client to have, and I'm so happy for your success.
Well, thank you very much. You're a big part of that, so we really appreciate that.
Thanks.
And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio. As always, thank you so very much for listening to Boundless Body Radio. It's really inspiring and amazing to see some of the reviews that we have been getting, and also to receive so many messages and emails about how these episodes have improved our listeners' lives. And so thank you so very much. We are so happy to bring these episodes to you and provide them for free. And we really hope that they help you in your life. We have just passed 2 major milestones, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And basically, we did both of these in pretty much the exact same day. We have just passed 100,000 downloads worldwide of Boundless Body Radio, and we have just launched our 250th episode, which is absolutely amazing. Like I said, I never imagined we could reach that many people. We always want to keep you updated on things that we're doing on our website. So if you go to myboundlessbody.com, you can always see what we're up to. This month, we have a link that you can go and schedule a functional movement screen, which we do virtually over Zoom. A functional movement screen is a series of 7 different movements and 3 different clearing tests, which is designed to find weak links in the body, such as muscle imbalances and joint stability issues. It's a really great tool for discovering inefficient movement, and even if you're not experiencing pain in certain areas of your body, it's something that can prevent injury later on. Some muscles need to be stretched, some need to be strengthened, and we can help you create a plan around that so that you can stay healthy and continue to move well for the rest of your life. So again, you can go and schedule that at myboundlessbody.com. You will also see the other services that we offer. You can always schedule a complimentary 30-minute consultation with us to really chat about anything that you like. And remember, if you are enjoying Boundless Body Radio, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on Apple. It really helps get this passion project out to other people. And thank you again for tuning into Boundless Body Radio.